Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome inside the After Hours Lounge on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu. Register for classes. You could become a Bruin as early as this fall. No classes on Fridays. Majority of your classes done online. Check out bellevue.edu and register classes tonight. Speaking of, got a loaded / great show lined up for you tonight. Phase 2 of Warhorse Omaha opens up in just a few weeks. Lynn McNally, the CEO of Horseman's Park, and Lance Morgan, the CEO of Ho Chunk, are in studio to talk about it. Speaking of being in studio, and I forgot to tell the three gentlemen staring at me right now, John Walker will join us in studio at 6:30 as well. We will also be joined by the Millard North boys soccer team, who have the number 1 seed heading in to their districts here in a few days, and they will join us in studio at 6:45. A little bit of a show lineup change from what we announced on social medias. Then we'll buy or sell on dire wolves coming back to humanity's Earth. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it Jurassic Park?
We have thoughts.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. The social media soundbite tonight, we'll give you a recap of the women's national championship. Speaking of national championships, the men's game ended as well, and it was an ending, wasn't it, folks? We'll talk about that. Well, let's take your phone calls, 402-951-1620. You can get at the show at After Hours 1620 as well. Don't forget to punch in for the night shift on YouTube. You can leave all the comments and talk about anything we're talking about with the night shift manager, captain, and the rest of the crew in the comments tonight as well. There was a ton of Huskers that spoke today. Marcus Satterfield took to the podium, and I have to tip my cap to Amy Just for being the one that finally asked it, because it was the 500-pound gorilla in the room that everybody was wanting to talk about, and it just kept being avoided. And she asked, how did the end of last season go for him, and why did he choose to come back to Nebraska? And you could tell by the look on his face and the smile he had, like, what took this question so long to be asked? But I don't know what I expected him to say to this question when he was asked it, but I don't think he could have came up with a better answer. And a lot of times we look at coaches and players separately, and he said, listen, there was no difference between a player getting benched and what happened to me at the end of last year. And the reason I came back is because I love this place. I love what we're building here. He didn't say it, but it's probably the money also. And I think there's that. He talked about his the excitement level he had when Coach Rule called him last year to come to, 2 years ago, to take this job as well. So I think there's a little bit of all of that. And you probably know you're not getting another OC job after this, after what happened, the way you exited South Carolina and this stint in Lincoln.
There's something to be said for liking the people you work with and the place you work at. It's a lesson
looking for a new radio job for 2 years.
It's a lesson that all of us at some point have had to learn. And like, people can tell you,
well, maybe not all of us.
People can tell you from their own experience that, like, look, salary matters, obviously, but it also matters, like, who you work for, where you work, and who you work with.
Yeah.
And if you don't like those people, that money isn't going to make you as happy as it could, right?
Well, and he credited, like, I think a lot of people would look at his situation and go, oh, he must hate Dana Holgorsen. But he's looking at it as like, hey, I get to work under Dana Holgorsen.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a lot. That's not something a lot of people get a chance to do with a guy that with a mind like that has the Mike Leach tutelage, etc.
So yeah, I just feel like that's a very honest and mature thing for him to have said, and honestly to have done. Because look, coaching is a very ego-driven profession.
And I will say this about Marcus Satterfield. It kind of feels like his ego has been in check since the day he walked in here. Like, he doesn't seem like he's a guy that has much of that.
It often takes guys who, whether you're fired as a head coach or you're fired as a coordinator or whatever it is, to get back in the saddle. Most of those guys take 1, 2, or multiple years off before they come back and take a lower level job, once they've sort of processed it all.
Usually in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. But for him to just immediately be like accepting of it and obviously on board and liking what he's doing I think that just takes tremendous self-awareness.
I'm glad you mentioned that second part, because when he was asked about, literally every guy he was asked about, he lit up. Like, he was clearly thrilled with the guy.
Yep.
You could tell how happy he is to have Heinrich Harburg in that room, who spoke today as well. Just because you have that quarterback voice in that room now, and there's more of, like, not only can he coach to it, but Heinrich can have the conversation about what the quarterback's seeing or why you're doing concept A in this situation, or when it's checked out of. And, like, I didn't think about that aspect of it. I mean, that's clearly a major coup for that room. But like when you think about guys like Mac Markway, who's come up here from LSU, has had a little bit of an injury, who a lot of people are really high on, then the injury happens 5 plays in the spring practice. And the fact that you've got all these experienced tight ends / a quarterback in this room helping these guys out. And like we got to guy number 6 before Luke Lindenmeyer was even asked about. Yeah. He's arguably the best one out of all of them. They just have a spoil of riches in that group, which is something that I think this team is going to take advantage of this season.
I hope so, because it seems like for as long as I've been, in media since, and even before that, the tight end room at Nebraska has had a ton of talent and spectacular mismanagement. Like that has just been.
Brody, let me tell you about this guy named Matt Harrion.
Matt
Harrion was like the last one that produced anything.
That's what I'm saying. And it wasn't even his last year.
Ethan Carter was on a milk carton for his entire Nebraska career and had a long professional career.
How long can we list obscure Nebraska tight ends?
I mean, dude, there's just so many guys who've come through here, and you're like, they come out of high school like, this is a good tight end. They get to Nebraska, and you're like, who's that guy again? And then they pop up on an NFL roster for 12 years. And it's like, what were we doing? It's just been such a baffling, like, it's almost a microcosm of the Nebraska football program in itself, the tight end position, because you have all the resources, you have good recruiting, and yet you can't produce. Like, what is happening?
Mike McNeil.
Nobody can quite put their finger on why that is. You know what I mean?
And like Bill Callahan's system was tight end oriented. Like there was so many different things that you could use with the H-back and the tight end. We're gonna let's talk about that later in the show, because I go down a rabbit hole about this for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had the rabbit hole look in your eye.
Because trust me,
I'm ready to run a train.
I said Mike McNeil, and I was like, we're gonna get deep into this. We'll talk about that later. I want to talk about the rest of the conversation at the podium today in Lincoln. And Heinrich Haarberg talked after Marcus Satterfield, and I thought it was really interesting the comparison and the parallel he talked about with Marcus Satterfield. And he said, hey, last year didn't go the way either one of us wanted it to. And to my recollection, that's the first time Heinrich Haarberg talked openly about not being the starting quarterback at Nebraska last year in a negative connotation. But like, I think everybody just went, oh, that's so nice that he's willing to be a tight end and that he's going to sit behind Dylan. And he's so like, clearly it bothered him. And I think it's really nice to see the human side of it, and the fact that he's like, hey, listen, it sucked, and I was the starter, and now I'm not. But and you talked about maturity with Marcus Satterfield a minute ago, but he had the maturity to go, I like the transformation that my body's going through right now, and I like the aspect of what I'm doing as a tight end. I've never run a route before, but I'm getting really good at it. And like seeing the light bulb come on for that guy, when we often see these position changes, and you wonder, is that going to work? And it's never going to work unless you're passionate about it. And Heinrich Haarberg looks like he's dedicated to doing this.
Dude, the striking thing was how big that guy is.
Much bigger.
He is a friggin' monster. And like he looks like a tight end now. Like in what?
People said he looked like a tight end last year. Now you understand that no, he really didn't, by the way.
In 4 months.
Yeah.
He's gone from looking like a quarterback to looking like a tight end. That is just a tremendous body transformation. And like to see him like dedicate himself in that way, to not just being like, oh, I'm a good athlete, I'll step out on the field and I'll do some tight end adjacent things. Like, no, he became a tight end.
He's talking about run blocking, wanting to get to the second level. And this is a guy that was playing quarterback 6 months ago.
Yeah, I that was the thing to me that was like, oh boy, this is a different beast.
You know who I don't envy heading into this offseason? Rob Dvorak. Because they're going to have to find a way to keep somebody on the sideline. And when we just started hearing him rattle off the talent level that they had, him and Phil Simpson having that in that locker room, buddy, good luck trying to sort out that depth chart, because you've got some transfers in, you've got some guys that stuck around, you've got some freshmen, or well, I guess they'll be sophomores this year, and it's like, okay, well, there's only 4 linebacking spots out there. Where are these guys going to go?
Yeah, I was laughing really hard when you sent the text earlier and said, hey, we're going to talk about the Rob Dvorak press conference. My first thought was, why? His room is the one that I'm least concerned about out of all of them.
They're so like. The dude, like, you've got dudes that could play safety. You've got dudes that could put their hand in the dirt. You've got dudes that could play middle linebacker, and you got like 3 or 4 of them that could do all of that. It's like there's a ton of speed. Now, here's the thing. That defensive line is going to be noticeably smaller this season. I mean,
no doubt.
It's kind of hard to get bigger or stay the same.
Have you seen the pictures of Keona Davis, though?
That's where I'm going with this, by the way. But outside of him, you don't have anybody that looks like Ty Robinson. You don't look like anybody you don't have anybody that looks like Nash Hutmacher from a size standpoint, from a body type standpoint. With that being said, I think that might benefit these linebackers a little bit too, to have more space to get through and maybe draw one-on-ones versus double teams for defensive linemen, and maybe free up some space for the linebackers as well too. So there's going to be, I think this defense is going to look dramatically different despite running basically the same scheme.
I have a question.
Sure.
Am I the only one that felt like Rob Dvorak was being
decisively
intentionally evasive?
Yep.
Like I watched his entire press conference and I was just like, I don't think I learned a single thing.
He feels really good about what he has.
It's just like he said a lot of words and didn't give you any meat on the bone.
I think that's debatable. I don't think he said a lot of words, and I think that, to your point, that was intentional.
But there was no meat on those bones.
Yeah.
Like there's just nothing there to take away from it.
It felt very, we're on to Cincinnati. Like, hey, we're ready for the fall. I got some dudes that can get out and run. Oh, and they're long. And probably 3 guys that are going to be NFL draft picks in the first 2 days. Like, we're good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Next.
I kind of got that sense from Rob Dvorak as well, but
which is incredible. I don't mean to cut you off. Which is incredible, by the way, because he's probably the most vocal guy at practice.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's not like it's a super big problem with him, but it always seems like he's a little bit pulled back from the media when they do have questions for him. It seems like he doesn't really like to give it all up. And I'm sure, to Jimmy's point, with the defensive line being smaller and possibly being able to, get one-on-one, man-to-man kind of stuff up at the line with your linebacking core, he's got some dudes in that room who are leverage players, who know how to use their body and who know how to use their hands and work an offensive line to try to get back to the quarterback. So the scheme this year is going to be really fun.
And Willis McGahee grabbed the media too and talked to them afterwards, and which seemed weird because it kind of seemed like he engaged that, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there, but that is what it is.
Hey, y'all, it's me, Willis. Come over, talk to me.
But he was specifically asked about who the guys are offensively that are making plays, because obviously with Hardly Gilmore leaving the team this weekend. Did you see the look on his face when he was talking about Isaiah Hunter? He really likes him some Isaiah Hunter, by the way. He's apparently catching everything and is really fast. Good problem to have. Like, for a guy that's going to be a sophomore this year, he might be your most utilized weapon this season.
Isaiah Hunter.
Yeah.
The most utilized?
By the way, Willis McGahee was talking about him? Yeah.
I'd be surprised. I'll just say I'd be surprised
because of Dane Key.
Because of Dane Key. Because of Ja'Cory Barney.
And both of those guys are going to be circled and probably tried to take it away by the defense.
Yeah.
So that'll leave some room open.
Yeah, a couple of those videos that I've seen of Dane Key going out and getting those go balls got me a little hot under the collar. Kind of made me want to say, "How you doing, sir?"
Yeah, and obviously, like, that's going to be the interesting conversation, though, right? Because, like, you think you know what you have in Isaiah Hunter. Obviously, he's got a lot of upside. You think you know what you got in Dane Key, and you think you know what you got in Ja'Cory Barney. What does that room look like behind those 3 guys? Like, from a depth chart standpoint, they think Cortez Mills is ready, but he's a freshman. You've got a couple of guys in Jaden Doss, who's spent some time at defensive back, but is also coming back from an injury.
Demetrius Bell.
And you've got a lot of question marks behind those 3 guys, who arguably have some question marks in front of them too. And, like,
true,
you've still got a guy that's playing in his second year of collegiate football throwing the ball as well. So that room is maybe where I have the most question marks at.
At wide receiver.
Yeah.
More than, I guess, running back, we know who's the one. We just don't know what's behind him. Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's something I haven't really explored, is like, which room do I have the most questions about? I think defensive back is the one I have the least. But our defensive line, I think, might give a run for the money on most question marks.
You know what questions you may have? You may be wondering what phase 2 of Horseman's Park and Warhorse Casino is going to look like in Omaha. We're going to talk to the CEO of both of those entities when we come back on the other side of the break. If you missed the opening segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. Did you just have to restart your router again? Are you sick of dealing with your current internet company and not getting the speeds they promised you? You need to head over to allofiber.com tonight. Get out of the Stone Age. They have 24/7 customer support for employees that are right here in Omaha. That's right. If you pick up the phone, call Allo Fiber or head over to allofiber.com. You're going to talk to somebody locally right here in Nebraska. They've made Nebraska home since 2003. They can make your home more comfortable with better internet, better cable service. Check out allofiber.com tonight. We're talking to Lynn McNally and Lance Morgan on the other side of the break. 1620 The Zone.
Keep your carbohydrates down. You're 5-star Betty. You got to beat the other clown.
Hey, everybody. John here for Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. We have been exploring where the most questions are on Nebraska's depth chart in the spring. What about the questions about the depth chart in your closet? Do you have a starter? Do you have a go-to? Do you have a number one? Are you unsure about that? Well, you need to get sure about it because wedding season is right around the corner. And you need to get yourself to 78th and Dodge, to Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Get those questions answered. Get your go-to. Get your number one, the top suit on your rack. They're going to give you the premier suit buying experience in the Midwest. Monier the tailor, he's going to get you fitted out. He's going to have you the best you've ever looked in a suit in your entire life. That is guaranteed. Tell John, Dan, Jake, and Deanne that you heard about them on the After Hours Lounge. Maybe you're part of the night shift and you want to get yourself in there for your next night shift, which might be out on the dance floor at a big wedding coming up this summer. 78th and Dodge. They've been dressed in Omaha for over 50 years.
6:21 on a Tuesday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu, register for classes, become a Bruin tonight. Phase 2 is coming to Omaha's Warhorse Casino, and Lynn McNally, the CEO of the Horseman, and Lance Morgan, the CEO of Ho Chunk, is in studio with us tonight. They're holding up concern signs. There's concerns that mobile sports betting is not legalized yet in the state of Nebraska. But guys, thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
Lance, no, you're not. Don't lie to me, but it's all right. Lance, we'll start with you. Phase 2 is coming to Omaha over off 63rd and Q. What does that look like?
It's going to be, we are exactly 2 weeks away.
Mhm.
And when we opened the first part of the casino, it was, it's got everything you need, but it's not what you expect fully in a casino in terms of restaurants and, all sort of the glitz and the glamour. We remodeled an existing facility and it looks great,
It does.
but it's about to be special.
Mm.
And we will have invested a couple $100 million in it. And I think that we will come out with some restaurant options, some,
Finally put Chris back
the
to work.
Nebraska Ale House featuring all local beers. And things
Very
like
cool.
that. It's going to be really, really cool. And it's just going to be more of a casino feel. And there'll be places for people who want to smoke and gamble. We have a different spot for them. So, we'll check every box by this time.
The couple people that I've talked to that have been down there have said this really feels like Vegas. Was that kind of the point?
Well, we wanted it to be, a lot of casinos used to be sort of kitschy. They had a theme. We didn't have a theme. We wanted to be modern. We wanted to be cool.
Sure.
And we wanted to represent sort of an entertainment value. And sometimes when you go to the casinos, and I don't want to say anything too negative, Council Bluffs, it feels a little old.
Sure.
Yeah. And so this will have a newer vibe.
Has there been anything about this process from phase 1 to phase 2 that you found surprising?
Well, I think it's
How much time you got?
everything is, when you're building something, you have a plan.
Yeah.
And that plan lasts about 5 minutes. But I think what's great for us, everything we've built, we've been under budget and we've been ahead of schedule, anywhere from a month to 6 weeks. And
Phase
every
1
day
opened.
matters.
Phase 1 opened up almost 6 weeks early, right?
Yeah. And so did the same thing happen in Lincoln. And this is about 2 months early. So it's going to be that part's helpful, but I don't want to get into, I want to focus on the positive.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Not the constant
Well,
problems.
Lynn, I want to ask you, because obviously you guys have this entity where Warhorse Casino operates, and the Horseman still has simulcasting for horse racing. How does Phase 2 help and affect Horseman?
Well, it's going to be fantastic because number one, Phase 1 is basically a complete remodel and overhaul of the original Horseman's Park. This doubles a gaming floor, Lance. I can't remember, but it's a lot bigger, and it's got a really grand entrance. It's got this fantastic chandelier down in the main area. There's a porte cochere. It's just phenomenal. There's a couple of escalators coming down from the parking garage. It's just really what you would expect in a first class, high quality facility, and we're the beneficiaries of that.
I have something to add.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. The city of Omaha took the time to redo the bridge on 72nd.
Yeah.
Which is our main entrance.
How nice of them.
So it'll be nice if they can hurry up and finish that.
Yes. As somebody has to commute past that bridge every night coming from here, I second that, by the
Well,
way.
unless you don't have a casino on the other side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's about 2 months from being open.
I have to ask, is that the most asked about question? Is the footbridge from the parking garage into the casino? Because I know just about everybody that I know is asked about that, when that's going to be open.
No, the biggest question I get is the overall parking situation. Is the south area of the parking lot going to be open? The answer is yes. And the other question I get is a smoking area.
Mhm.
We have 2 smoking areas in Lincoln. We had 0 in Omaha. And the smoking area here in Omaha, oh my gosh, you can't tell you're outside. You really can't.
Wow.
So it's wonderful.
That walkway was very expensive. I just walked through there and look around, and I think
It looks great.
I mean, this is cool. It seems like over the top, but
Sure.
I think it's going to be very popular, especially when the weather's bad. What's really going to be good is when it's no longer an active construction site,
Sure.
and everything's going to look good over there.
When you guys debuted what it was going to look like, the first fly up digital view was that entrance facing the parking garage,
Yes.
which will be the de facto main entrance now, correct?
Yes.
That's got to be a great coup for you guys,
it's
right?
really cool in there too. We have this, this giant light feature and some really cool artwork, and it's going to be a spectacular entrance. And if you come in from the parking garage to the walkway, there's these escalators coming down. It's quite the view.
People are asking in the YouTube chat right now if there is sports betting at Warhorse. So apparently we didn't do as good of a job as we could have letting people know. Yes, there's a fully functioning sports book in there. I think the main question everybody wants to know about is when is mobile gaming or online sports betting coming to the state of Nebraska? Do you guys have any update on that?
Yeah, we have to do a constitutional amendment, and so that's going to be the next time there's an election, and so it'll be 26. But we asked the legislature to put it on the ballot, and it went through. You have to go through a committee, then it has to get on, then it has to be voted on. So we got out of the committee 6-2. There were some normal people there, sort of preaching against it.
Mhm.
And I said, I told him I learned to gamble in the church basement, and that shut him up. But
It was prioritized by a senator, meaning that, it's one of the bills that's in the queue to be heard. So now we're just waiting.
yeah, we're waiting on in politics. Sometimes if somebody doesn't like you, can get in the way. And I think that it's being sort of slow played
Sure.
by some of the leadership. And so we're hoping that we know that about 68 to 72% of Nebraskans will vote for it. So I hope a couple people just don't.
We
Use their
also
power to
know
get in the
they're
way.
already betting. They're just using a VPN, or they're going to exit one here between Omaha and Council Bluffs. So they're leaving about $32 million a year on the table in tax revenue.
It's not hard to do. I was in a hearing last summer on sports betting, and I opened an account on a Latvian website and made a bet during the hearing on the second half of the USA basketball game,
Mm.
and won $15 before the hearing was over.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So I mean, it can be done.
Well, we're just exiting the most bet on event in American sports in March
Yes.
Madness.
Yeah.
And Lynn, can you kind of talk about what that number looked like this year and how that kind of benefits the Nebraska area?
It was crazy. So up until that point, our biggest day was Super Bowl Sunday, obviously. But NCAA tournaments, men's and women's, was phenomenal for us. Our revenue increased significantly, and we had a full house in Lincoln. I know they were very full in Omaha as
I
well.
think you got to keep in mind. Sorry to interrupt, but we only had a partial year in Omaha,
Sure.
and we didn't really expand Lincoln until November, and we had 820,000 bets made last year, individual bets, and $46 million worth of bets were made.
That's all the legislation we just talked of. 72nd Street being completely closed down from one half of the city.
And
so
that-
it's still
that-
growing.
people want to do it, so
Yeah.
it will be well over 100 million, and probably a few million bets this year. in
Yeah.
25. And so it's not even like a debate whether or not it's here or whether or not people want
Yeah.
it.
And that does not include horse racing bets. Those are separate from that. So we've been really fortunate that people have really embraced it. But again, is it easier to come down to Warhorse and place your bet, or is it easier to bet on your phone in your living room?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. And can you guys talk a little bit about, and I think this is the question that everybody's going to ask about, like, obviously gaming staying in Nebraska helps with property tax, helps with a ton of relief in this state. How is that kind of looking for the next year or two without mobile sports betting versus if mobile sports betting were to be legalized?
We're dropping probably $2 to $3 million a month into that pile,
Mm,
for property tax relief, and we haven't really fully opened.
scratch the surface, yeah.
And so,
And that's just us. That's not including Grand Island and Columbus.
so my guess is we'll put about $30 to $40 million into the kitty
Mhm.
for the property tax relief fund this year, and then when we expand in Lincoln again, and we still have to build one in South Sioux City, it'll grow again. And so it's doing what it said. I'm not sure what the state is doing exactly with the money and how they're doing
It goes directly into the property tax relief fund, and they apply it to taxes across the state. The problem is,
I didn't see that on my tax bill
well,
yet.
local and county
We get a little more in Papillion, that'd be
entities
nice.
have been either increasing the valuation or increasing their levy. So they're eating up every penny that we contribute to the fund, which kind of is a bummer because, everyone says to us, well, where's our property tax relief, right?
Sure.
But I do want to add that if mobile sports betting were legalized, it would add another about $32 million a year into that property
We
tax
should get
relief
some
fund.
of that tariff money to see if we can lower the property.
Yeah, no kidding.
That seems to be a hot button topic. I want to ask, obviously, we just talked about the big event that just ended, but obviously there's a big one coming up in May. The Kentucky Derby is May 3rd.
Oh, we are looking forward to that.
I
We're
figured you
really,
were.
really anxious.
Wh- What are the festivities for the Derby look like this
we've
year?
got all kinds of promotions going on, sports betting and horse racing both. We're doing joint promotions. We're going to have a hat contest.
I
It's
plan
going
on
to
winning
be
that.
phenomenal.
The hat contest?
Yeah.
We'll be looking forward to that.
And then,
it's a sombrero.
in Lincoln, that following weekend is opening day for us for Lincoln for Legacy Downs live meet.
All right.
So we're running 5 weekends, 15 days, and then we'll be in Omaha this summer for live days, and there'll be full days of racing.
Well, make sure you get out to Warhorse Casino, whether it be in Omaha or Lincoln, for their big events coming up, whether it be the Kentucky Derby, or maybe just to place a sports bet. That is the CEO of Ho Chunk, Lance Morgan, the CEO of the Horseman, Lynn McNally. Guys, thank you very much for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks so much. We love coming.
If you missed their segment tonight, check it out. SoundCloud.com/AfterHours1620. It was brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. It may be a new year, but it's the same old experience at Cunningham's. 2 great locations. Make sure you get down to the Blackstone District. Brand new parking garage built 5 minutes outside of Cunningham's front door. Stop down tonight. Try my personal favorite. It's the Everything Bagel Salmon Wrap. It will change your life. It's got salmon, guacamole, tomatoes, and onions and lettuce. It is fantastic. You're not going to regret it. Stop by Blackstone tonight and try Cunningham's Pub. Dumb After Hour Central. We'll be right back. Catch up with John Walker talking about Creighton's transfer portal and a whole lot more here on 1620 The Zone.
Well, there are a lot of things in your life that you could gamble on, and a lot of them could be really fun. You could bet on sports. You could bet on any number of things, but one thing you don't want to gamble on is who is representing you in court. Hey, everybody, it's John here for Bob at Williams Law. Don't gamble with your legal advice. You need Bob in your corner. One of the great legal minds in the Omaha area. He comes in and talks about the big pressing legal matters in sports with us every week. And if you have a big pressing legal matter in your life, doesn't have to be sports related, but Bob is going to be in your corner. He deals with criminal, he deals with civil, he deals with personal. He can deal with your legal situation. And he's going to start by giving you a free, no obligation legal consultation where he sits down with you, no cost up front. He assesses your situation, gives you the advice to get those initial questions off your plate, and give you the peace of mind as you head for your big day in court. Check him out at WilliamsLawLLC.com.
6:36 on a Tuesday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone to keep up to date on all the championship action happening on Bellevue's campus tonight. John Walker from the Omaha World Herald joins us in studio. John Walker, good evening, sir. How are you?
Man, I'm good. It's been a whirlwind.
Have you slept lately?
Yeah, I have. Thankfully, today's Tuesday. If I have my
Correct.
days
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Lost track of them at this
It's been
point.
Tuesday for 4 years now.
Yeah, it's this has been the first day in quite a few days that we have not had something going on at Creighton in one way
Yeah.
or another, whether it was a game or news.
Dude.
Coaches leaving? Yeah.
So I caught up on sleep a little bit today. I slept in this morning and didn't do much today. But I've all of that to say, I've been about as busy as you guys could imagine.
Yeah.
Because I bet that you have been as busy as well.
Yeah, I want to talk about the coaching situation at Creighton eventually, but I want to talk about the transfer portal stuff for men's basketball
Okay.
for a second because they get rid of 1 7'1" guy and add another one. I'm going to take a shot here in the dark.
I've got it down.
I
so
know you
please
do. Is it Aleska Dimitrovic?
Dimitrievich.
I was halfway there.
Alexa Dimitrievich.
When we talk about replacing Ryan
Alexa, score 15 points.
Yeah. Isn't that going to be so
Yeah.
good?
Oh, yeah. It's going to
Except
happen.
I'm for sure I'm gonna put this on the record now. I'm gonna call him AD.
Okay.
All right.
That's a lot of bandwidth in a tweet or in print.
Yeah.
Dimitrievich.
Say you're a company man. You're saving money.
You know,
I want to ask about, obviously, you add one big man in Owen Freeman, and everybody knew that you had to replace Fred King as
Yeah.
well. In a day and age where it's all about NIL and playing time, it seems like on its face, can you afford to redshirt a 7'1" Serbian guy?
this one, no. Generally speaking, perhaps. You know, like it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. Maybe it would for this team, but just generally, like
Sure.
it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world if Creighton would have just decided to redshirt Fedor. For example, this season to let him develop while he was dealing with his eligibility saga. But this team didn't have that luxury. They needed
Especially with
Fedor
Pop going down.
at one point in
Yeah.
the season, especially down the stretch. So maybe in an instance like that, but certainly not this one. You know, there are only 3 roster spots left. Are you going to go get another big? Like, is this team really going to carry 3 centers on the roster? I don't know,
Sure.
especially since Owen Freeman is a 2-year guy, you would think.
Hasn't
Yeah.
played a ton of minutes, though. Is that a concern for you? I mean, like,
Freeman?
yeah.
No. That's not a concern. I wouldn't think so.
Sure.
It wasn't a concern for Jemiah.
That's a good point.
He hadn't played a lot at Arizona State.
He didn't sit a lot this year.
He didn't sit a lot this year. So, but when it comes to Alexa, I personally think he will redshirt, but I don't know if you can afford to, right? Especially if they don't go get
A third.
a third big. Because I think we'll see him go back to let it fly this year. That high in the let it fly.
Sure.
I don't know. I think they want to have a little bit of that rim protection that they've had the last 4 years.
I want to ask, though, because like it seems like Greg McDermott doesn't want to go back to the Ryan Nembhard, get downhill,
Nah.
get to the rim. They want to live in that realm. Does that surprise you?
Not really, especially with where the game is now. Because for the same reasons that they had or that teams had problems driving on them all season,
Sure.
they struggled with Auburn's paint presence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so hard without a generational big like Kalk to say, okay, we know positively, absolutely, we're going to be able to hang on the block for 40 minutes or have an undersized guard drive the lane.
Yeah.
Probably not going to work out. The thing is, Nick Graves has a little bit of that ability.
Mhm.
Like he'll get downhill. I think I saw somebody say he shot like the 27th most free throws in the country last year or something like that. Like he'll get downhill, he'll attack the rim. But I still think the identity of this team is going to be to shoot it. I mean, duh, as long as Greg McDermott's
Sure.
still here, you know what I mean? And that's why you go get a guy like Josh Dix. That's why you have a guy like Jackson McAndrew in the lineup. You go get a guy like Owen Freeman, who hasn't taken a lot of 3-pointers in his career, but he's shown promise.
Yeah.
When he has. And then Graves can fill it up a little bit too, but that won't necessarily be his role. So I think it'll be a little bit of that downhill. I'm not surprised that they're getting away from that, or I should say staying away from it. But I think this upcoming season will be a blend of kind of that like 2021 team with last year's team, I think.
Of these four that we've been talking about in Graves, Dix, Freeman, and Dimitrovic,
There you go.
which, yeah, I speak Russian, John. It's fun.
Not well.
Not anymore. But
Great guy.
I can do the
Here in Soviet Omaha.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I was a Russian linguist in the Marine Corps. That was my
Oh,
job.
That's sick.
So yeah,
Is it?
story for another time. But of those four, like, who do you think means the most to the roster next year?
I think it has to be Dix.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really do.
Because early on, I think the consensus was Freeman
Right.
before Dix
Right.
came in.
Right. But I just think it's easier to swallow the fact that you're bringing in Freeman and it'll look different than Kalk. And not that like, oh my God, they got Owen Freeman. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about the top rated center in the portal.
Yeah,
But it makes the transition easier to stomach because you know that you weren't going to get anyone who was Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Sure.
You're like, oh, okay, we're gonna have a new center. That's gonna look different, sure. But we saw how important ball handlers are in this system
Oh, yeah.
this
Sure
year.
did.
Oh yeah.
Why did they
And-
turn it over a little bit?
Yeah, just a little
Yeah.
bit. And more importantly, how necessary it is to have multiple ball handlers on the floor
Mhm.
at the same time. Creighton was at its best when Jemiah Neal was, kind of for that same reason. And Josh Dix brings that ability to create for him and for himself and others. And he's 6'6" and shoots 42% from three. So
That's good in case
That'll
anybody's
play.
wondering.
that'll play.
I want to ask about those 3 open spots. And I think we're both in agreement. They're probably not adding 3 more players to this roster, right?
I think they might.
Okay. All right.
I think they add 2 and leave a spot open. Mac told me last summer that he likes to do that because you simply never know what's going to shake out
Sure.
over the summer. Coach retires and boom, here's a star player in the portal or whatever. So just leaving one spot gives them a little bit of flexibility. Doing that last year, they got Fedor.
Right.
So I think they'll fill 2 of them soon. What's soon? I don't know if that's this week. I don't know if that's next month.
Well, then that leads me to my next question. What's
But-
the most
but yeah.
important spot they need to fill?
I think they backup big would tell you everything you need to know about what
Sure.
they think of Alexa. But I personally think they need another guy who can play the 2 or 3. Like you need a Jemiah Neal.
Mhm.
And that's Dix a little bit. And you'll have Hudson Greer and you'll have Nick Graves. You'll have Ty Davis.
If you go out and
But-
get a wing, though,
Yeah.
what do you do with Jason Green?
I think okay, so let's assume the starting lineup right now
Yeah.
is Nick Graves, Josh Dix.
Jackson McAndrew.
Let's skip the 3
Okay.
for the moment, and you have Jackson McAndrew and Owen Freeman.
Mhm.
If I say let's put Fedor Zugic there, who defends who? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's-
who defends in that lineup?
They've got to find some defensive wrinkles next year.
So and that's nothing against Fedor.
Sure.
But Jason showed an ability this season to take away the other team's best scorer. Like he chased Eric Dixon around. He chased Cam Jones around. He switched on to Jamil Telfort in that regular season finale down the stretch against Butler. And so he really proved himself as somebody who could be a stopper. And so I just think in a lineup with Graves, Dix, McAndrew, Freeman, you have to have that person on the floor. So I think Jason should start still.
I agree.
But what would happen if you went and got another wing?
That makes it really interesting.
That would, in my opinion, depend on how quickly Hudson Greer settles in.
Where does Jackson McAndrew go from here? I mean,
Oh.
he showed some flashes this year. I just wonder what the next evolution is.
Yeah. Playing through him a little bit more. Like, he's really, really good as a spot up shooter and coming off actions. But he's got a little bit of a bag. We haven't seen it a lot because it's not like, I don't know, and you guys have been around the program longer than I have. When was the last time they played through a wing who would put their back to the basket and navigate the offense? And
Doug.
That's
what I'm
I was going to
saying.
say. You remember
That's-
this kid that wore 3?
that's like,
Yeah.
have they had any sense then? Notably,
Not really.
like McAndrew has that type of post.
They could do it on the defensive side too.
Yeah, which nobody really expected. Like, I asked Greg McDermott last summer, I was like, could you see him playing a small ball 5? Like, is he going to play the 3, the 4? And he said, it kind of depends on who you can defend.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, interesting. He was like, our offense, it'll take care of itself. He was like, I need somebody to positionally defend.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, that's interesting. So he wasn't sure what Jackson's role was going to look like. 11 months ago, I think is when we had that conversation early last offseason.
And just talking to Steve Murfield, I don't think they knew until the Popeyes injury either.
No,
Yeah.
no. So it's his development on the defensive end was so crucial. So he'll defend, but long meandering way to say, I think Jason Green has to be in a lineup like that.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows?
Well-
Isn't it nuts to be talking about this?
Yeah.
when,
Yeah.
We're 7 months away.
Yeah. It's a lot
We
to figure
just
out.
finished the season.
7 months away.
Look at how many pieces you lost. I mean, you have to
I
have the
know.
conversation.
No, for sure.
Speaking of losing pieces, the volleyball team lost
Yeah.
its most important piece. Kirsten Bernthal Booth
Yeah.
it walks away from Creighton, kind of hands it off to somebody that was on her bench. How surprising was that news to you?
Yeah. I mean, I said it in the tweet when it got sent out. Shocking. That, like,
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. If
Yeah.
you put McDermott, Flannery, and Booth on a list, Booth would have been at the bottom
correct.
of that list of who's going to hang it up
Correct.
first.
I would have thought Flan.
Yeah.
Flan's
yeah.
been around
He's been around a long time.
And of those 3, Booth was absolutely the last one that I expected to go. And so, no, it was a late Sunday stunner. That's exactly what it was. And to show how shocked I was, shout out Rob Anderson here.
Mhm. The best in the biz.
I got the release, saw the release, and texted him and said, "Is this serious?" Like,
Yeah, I thought it was fake.
No
when I saw it.
April
like,
Fools?
yeah, I was like, Booth is actually leaving, and
You're not-
Brian's taking over, and he was
Did
like,
you mean that
yeah.
Brian Rosen got a job somewhere else? Is
Right,
that what you meant to say?
Like, he got promoted.
Yeah.
So no, it was absolutely shocking. Here we are, 48 hours later, almost 36 hours after the press conference, and I still kind of can't believe it. Good for Brian though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what were your thoughts on Brian Rosen getting the job?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of people yesterday, and one thing was clear that it was that Kirsten Bernthal Booth was very, very, very adamant about bringing Brian Rosen aboard.
Mhm.
When he joined 3 years ago, she was very, very adamant that the department do whatever it took to get him. That's what she thought of him. And I
She
think
said
it-
so as much on the Creighton
yeah,
Athletics Hour,
yeah.
too, by the
So
way.
I think it just says a lot that the timing kind of lined up with all of this. Maybe if it was somebody else, she wouldn't have mulled the LOVB thing.
Mhm.
And but the fact of the matter is, it was Brian Rosen, and he had opportunities to leave, and she said, "Well, I don't want this guy to leave."
Yeah.
And he had plenty of opportunities to leave over the last few off seasons, especially this off season, and just kind of passed the torch. Everything lined up for her to pass the torch as abruptly as it seemed.
We've talked about so much of the changing of the guard on the men's basketball side in the Big East. And now this signals the
Yeah.
two big dogs
Yeah.
in the Big East as far as volleyball. Ryan Tice leaves to become the head coach at Florida. Kirsten Bernthal Booth steps aside. I mean, this opens the door now in Big
does.
East volleyball. I still think Marquette and Creighton are going to be the dominant forces,
Sure.
but there's room for somebody else to rise now.
There is. Who's it going to be? St.
Yeah.
John's has been really tough.
Yeah. DePaul's kind of
DePaul
on the
has
up and
been-
coming.
DePaul, we could say DePaul is upstart at the
Yeah.
moment.
Sure.
When you have one of the best outside hitters in the conference,
Yeah.
you can make some noise most nights. The interesting thing is Booth said Monday that she expects Creighton to be top 10 nationally
Yeah.
in rev share for volleyball
Yep.
programs. And if that's the case, then I don't see anybody in the Big East.
No.
Like Brian's a good enough coach, and
I mean,
if that's
Providence-
the resources,
Providence still isn't fully scholarship
No.
for volleyball.
No.
So
no. But isn't that crazy how the whole cycle played out? Because
it's wild.
he left Marquette to go to Florida. Marquette hired the South Carolina coach.
Yeah.
Brian Rosen's alma mater, South Carolina,
Yeah.
And then he gets
who may
that
or may
job.
not have talked to him.
Yeah.
The dominoes fall in a
Um,
circle.
And now here we are. So
So you're saying
Shout
2
out.
plus 2 does equal 4.
yeah, shout out to Big East.
Yeah. Hey, that's John Walker from the Omaha World Herald. If you want insight like that, check out omaha.com or follow him on Twitter at @byjohnwalker. If you missed his segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/after-hours 1620 is brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. The temperature is rising outside. You don't want it to rise inside. Get a maintenance appointment set up with Controlled Comfort. They'll come out and take a look at your AC. They'll take a look at your furnace. They'll switch out your furnace filter as well along the way and give you peace of mind about your HVAC this spring. Head over to controlledcomfort.com. Book that maintenance appointment tonight. We'll be right back talking to the number 1 seed in Class A, the Miller North Mustangs, and boys soccer on the other side of the break. 1620 The Zone. You know what I did for lunch today? I stopped by Pepper Jack's Grill. There's 10 great locations in the Omaha area. You're not going to beat Pepper Jack's. They've got all the options you're looking for. Whether it's my personal favorite, the steak and shrimp rice bowl, maybe you have a vegetarian in your life. They have salad options. There's no option that's not available for you at Pepper Jack's. Stop by, try my personal favorite. I get a steak rice bowl, onions, mushrooms, green peppers over the top of it. Get some of that spicy ranch on the way out. It's so good it should be illegal to sell. Stop by Pepper Jack's tonight and grab dinner. 6:57 on a Tuesday night here at 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Bellevue University. Download the BU Bruins app to keep up to date on all the championship action happening on Bellevue's campus tonight. The Millard North Mustangs are in studio with us. The boys soccer program is in studio. Connor Robbins, Carter Webush, nailed it, and Gannon Timmermeyer is in studio with us tonight, guys. Obviously, a tremendous season out of the gates. Connor, we'll start with you. Halfway through your senior year, how much different has this offseason been for you as a senior this year as opposed to your previous 3 years?
Yeah, it's been a lot different. We had a coaching change.
Yeah.
So that it took a little bit getting used to knowing what he wants us to do, and that trying to being the leader this time and not coming in fresh has also been a lot different. And that's basically,
8 games in, you've already got 7 goals this year. That's as many as you scored all of last season. So I just wonder, what do you think's contributed to this early season scoring form?
Definitely my teammates' confidence in me shooting the ball and taking the shots, and also just the different style of play that we play now is also from the coach. Shout out to Yovan.
Are you surprised with how athletic you are as opposed to how unathletic your father is?
Yeah, you can say that.
What is obviously you got a little while to make this decision. What does life after high school look like for you?
Actually, I recently committed to Concordia.
Oh, congratulations!
So, thank you.
Why Concordia?
Really nice school. Love the coach, and it's a nice hidden campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about last year a little bit. Kind of an up and down season for the squad. How do you think that experience of getting some big wins, but having some big losses and falling to Creighton Prep at the end of the year. How did that experience make you approach this season?
Well, we have a lot of seniors, and it lit a fire under us. We've been a team that should have made state for 2 years, and all those experiences has put us into confidence in winning these games and taking care of what we should win and what we can control.
7-1 on the season so far. What would it mean for this class, the class of 2025, to be the class that not only makes it to the state tournament but wins the state championship for Millard North?
It would mean everything to us. We love each other. We work as one heart, one team. We're all in on it. This is our season.
Well, good luck in your senior year. Good luck at Concordia. Thanks for being here, man. Carter, we'll go over to you. Carter Webush is in studio with us as well. One of the best defenders, one of the best goalies in the entire state. 9th in Class A in saves on the season thus far. What were your personal goals heading into this season? What would you like to accomplish before the end of it?
Making saves. Obviously, that's a super fun part of the game, but
sure.
A lot of it is due to these great defenders we have this year that haven't been given opportunities to make saves because they've been doing an amazing job.
Again, you got to give him a little bit of help, man.
Shutouts in 5 of the first 8. 43 saves for you, about 5 per. From your perspective, what's made this backline so effective?
I think it's just a great understanding of each other and communicating well and just not letting anybody pass.
What happened in the Norfolk game? No, I'm totally kidding, man. We've always seen changes in fields, right? And it seems like for whatever reason, the state of Nebraska soccer pitches get put second fiddle to the football fields. Did the lines on the field ever mess with your vision when you're trying to defend when you're on a football field versus a traditional soccer pitch?
Not necessarily. Actually, the lines, especially like the goal box lines, are like super crucial for me, just knowing where I'm at without having to look backwards compared to the goal.
Talk to me about organizing your defense. We know that the keeper's sort of the quarterback back there, telling everybody where to be, what you're seeing. What kind of things are you telling the guys in front of you, and how do you like to direct your defenders?
I like to be super vocal. It's a lot of just helping them to understand, like checking their shoulders and knowing where attackers are so they can't make runs in behind.
What does life after high school look like for you?
I'm still like surveying options.
Sure.
I'm going on a visit actually to Concordia.
You know a guy
Thursday.
there. Hey, well, good luck the rest of the season. Good luck with your decision, wherever it may be. We'll go over to Gannon Timmermeyer, who joins us in studio as well. We know there's got to be something. Is there something that Carter yells out every single game that it sticks in your head?
I mean, you got to be vocal. I mean,
you got to be able to say it on the radio too, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. He gets mad at us. a lot when we don't talk, and he's always yelling at us, stop making us not be little whiny babies, I guess.
There you go.
Make that. So I think his vocality or whatever, I don't know if that's a word, but just him being vocal is very, very crucial for us, and he really gets in our head and makes us do better as a whole.
All right, you're rocking the AC Milan kit. Why AC Milan?
I mean, I honestly I like Sergio, or no, not Paulo Maldini.
Yo, yeah,
He's my favorite defender, and I think he's
That's a
personally the
throwback.
best. Yeah, personally the best defender in the world, or I mean,
of
still
all time. Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, I just had to bandwagon a little bit.
John just talked about it a minute ago. I mean, the shutouts, the defensive performances this season have been incredible. Other than a pretty good goalkeeper, what has been the best part about being on this defense this season?
I mean, the family I've made, like the friendships. Me and the back line were all really close friends outside of soccer. So I think it's really crucial that we build that chemistry and that we just become a really strong back line and help our goalkeeper. I love that.
Connor mentioned it earlier, but you got a really veteran squad this year, a lot of seniors. What have you learned from playing with all these guys with so much experience?
I mean, I've been playing with them for as long as I can remember playing in high school. And I mean, I've just learned that I got to keep fighting, keep trying to get better on off season so I can get to their level. I mean, they're 1 year ahead, so
Yeah.
I have to try to get up to them at least.
Well, thanks for
best I
being
can.
thanks for being here tonight, man. We greatly appreciate it. Good luck
Of course.
for the rest of the season. That's the Miller North Mustangs boys soccer program. If you missed their segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by our friends at Paul Davis Restoration. We all know seasonal storms are coming, and if it affects your home in multiple ways, Paul Davis Restoration is here to help. If you're dealing with home flooding, water damage, or if your house has been affected by a fire, Paul Davis can help with all of that. Check out 402-533-0373 tonight and have Paul Davis come restore your home today. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. Buying or selling here on 1620 The Zone. Top of the second hour here at 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. You don't become number one for over a decade in Omaha by accident. Check out pyramidroof.com to book a free estimate on your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com. Tonight, Brody Heidemann.
Good evening.
In the producer's chair tonight. He's finally back, back in the United States. Brody, what do you got for us tonight?
The Denver Nuggets, out of nowhere, fired Michael Malone and won't extend Calvin Booth. David Edelman, the Nuggets lead assistant, will be the new head coach. Malone has been the head coach of the Nuggets for 10 years, including their 2023 NBA championship season. Buy or sell now is the right time to part ways with Malone.
This doesn't make any sense. I absolutely sell this just because of how much time is left in the season. And especially if you have the guy you want to be your head coach on the bench anyway, why not just ride this thing out? Maybe it's a contract negotiation. But when you have the best player in the world and you've only got one championship to show for it, maybe there's some cause here. But yeah, I sell. I don't think this was the right. Let the season finish up.
I'm selling because, like, isn't all the playoffs start in like a week?
10 days.
Yeah, this seems dumb. This is like bad owner stuff.
Dan Campion's got some ants in his pants to get
this. This is just horrible. And like, what I don't get is, like, was there some sort of cause that they're just not saying? Like, it just seems so weird.
Dan,
there was a cause for this. So all throughout the season, you have Nikola Jokic, by far the greatest talent in the NBA right now.
He has a horse.
Thank you. Yeah, he has many a horse.
Man
he
loves
likes
horse.
Does not want to go to parade, but turns out love parade. Back to the real fact. Mike Malone, there have been stirrings within the
parade.
Within the Denver media and within just like the organization in general about the fact that he is not coaching this team at all well, as made evident by the Russell Westbrook gaffe. Like, I want to say it was 4 games ago now for them against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where game was completely and utterly in hand. They let Anthony Edwards completely and utterly take over. Shout out AE5. And he basically just like crapped the game down his leg. Now, the real trouble with that was Mike Malone refused to take the criticism upon himself, whereas he shifted the blame outwardly towards the team and towards Russell Westbrook specifically. Westbrook took the last 3 games off, came back, and then started answering questions like a child because he's not going to take the blame for Mike Malone's troubles.
Dan, do you consider yourself an NBA fan?
Yes, I do. I watch a lot of NBA basketball.
I know you do, and that's why
he watches the NBA playoffs instead of the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is inexplicable.
Whoa. That's not true.
Well, hold on. Let me tell you why I asked this question.
I have a lot of time on my hands.
Dan, can you name 3 Houston Rockets?
That one guy with the long hair, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and probably some big guy.
Sengun.
Oh, you could have added Jeff Green in with Jalen Green, but you also could have added Steven Adams in, who's somehow still on a roster in the NBA. They're second in the West right now, and
he plays for the Rockets.
That's my point. Is there's a list of nobodies, and the Rockets are second in the West right now. Sorry, Dan.
Tracy McGrady
does not play for the Rockets anymore.
Used to, though.
Yes.
Brody, what do we got for number 2?
Mel Kiper has Shedeur Sanders falling to number 9 to New Orleans. He's Cam Ward going number 1 overall. Buy or sell. Shedeur will fall out of the top 5.
I do think he'll fall out of the top 5. I do not think he'll fall out of the top 7. I think he's going to end up in New York. I think he's going to be a Jet. I think it's a great. Yeah, I think they need somebody there.
New York.
Yeah, listen, I think they need a quarterback, obviously, and I think New Orleans is a better fit. If we're talking about best fit for Shedeur, I don't know if he could end up in a better situation than in a dome in the South.
True.
I think that would help him out tremendously. I don't think he's getting past New York, though.
Ooh, this is a tough one. I think if he gets past the Giants, which he should.
Yeah.
I don't think the Giants would be wise to draft him at that spot. Then I think if he gets past the Giants, I don't think the Jets are going to take him. I don't trust the Jets to do anything that's reasonable, and 9 at New Orleans makes the next most sense.
I don't know. So hear me out here. If I'm the New York Giants, am I looking at Shedeur Sanders and saying, granted, they're two of the wackiest mentors, but you have probably two of the greatest quarterback mentors of all time in that room right now, where you have the championship bred Russell Wilson
Mhm.
and you have the F it, we ball Jameis Winston.
Facts.
Yes.
To me, the Giants seem like the best situation if you're willing to sit Shedeur Sanders, which
But
Shedeur
here's
Sanders isn't willing to sit Shedeur
Here's,
Sanders.
here's my
Definitely not.
argument, though. You've got those three guys. Who's your inactive on game day?
Yeah, which was why they're not
Shedeur.
going quarterback.
No,
that's
you're
not
not drafting somebody third overall
Yeah.
to be your
He's not-
inactive. It's not
With
happening.
the
Yeah.
talent at the top of the
I mean, it would have to be
Jameis.
Jameis. Yeah, from a
Yeah.
salary standpoint, that
They're-
doesn't even make the most sense.
And they're paying Jameis a lot of money
And
to
they-
be the inactive.
and they've got Tommy DeVito on the roster already.
They're not. They're not going to
I don't
draft
think
Shedeur.
I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback. Is it surprising you guys how much it's just like it's Cam Ward is just the number one overall
is.
pick now? Like
It's-
after it was Abdul Carter for so long, I think he's going number one overall.
It's
Yeah, and like I don't know how I feel about that. Like I think Cam Ward's good. I don't think he's number one overall good.
Yeah, and does the Mayo Company cut Will Levis tomorrow after he's not the starter? We'll see. Yeah, I think we always see it, right? Like a quarterback comes off the board and somebody you didn't think was
True.
going to panics.
Yep.
I think it's going to be the Jets.
I think, somebody's going to panic because at the top of the draft, they're going to say, hey, week 1, are we winning a game with this quarterback? And they're going to just go, no, can we win a game with this quarterback?
Which is probably going to
Maybe.
shove Jackson Dart up somebody's
Exactly.
board too.
Yeah. I'm glad you said board there. I was wondering where you're going with that. The one thing that the reason that I think Shedeur could drop past 9, because we talked a lot about why he won't, right? Is Dan Orlovsky was talking today and said that most GMs feel like they can only grade 25% of Shedeur's throws because of how often he checked down and how many short routes that he threw or passes behind the line of scrimmage, that only left 25% of his throws gradable. And I wonder how many GMs are going to look at that. If that's true, if that's the right number, and I did some research on this. I saw a couple of GMs that said that as well. How many guys are going to go, I don't know if we have enough film on him to take him in this spot,
Wow.
but this is also the same league that drafted Trey Lance with the third overall
That was
pick,
my next
Yeah.
point.
who found a new home today, by the way. Whoever Trey Lance's agent is deserves a raise.
For
Yes.
sure. Ovechkin, 895, broke Gretzky's record. I mean, what a game, what a stage. Does this buy or sell Ovechkin next to Gretzky? And not as the GOAT, but right below him as the GOAT.
This is your boy. I'll let you grab the stage.
Man, there's a lot of greats. And as far as like goal scorers go, yes, I will buy that.
Mm.
All around players, I mean, Wayne still holds the assists record too.
By
Yeah, I was going to
miles.
say.
So,
Yeah.
but Ovechkin's also fearsome on the defensive end.
I was just about to say, but there's one caveat to Ovi's game.
yeah.
Third
So
all-time hits.
So I think like Gretzky's got him as a goal scorer. I think they're even. As a playmaker, all the
It's
way
not
in the
even
Gretzky
close.
column.
Yeah.
As a defender, all the way in the Ovi column. So I think you can make the case that he's right there in that conversation as greatest of all time.
I mean, for me, like it's still always going to be Gretzky, Lemieux. Maybe you could throw Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby somewhere before around Brett Hull, maybe in that discussion.
Bobby Orr.
Bobby Orr, yeah, good call. But with that being said, like I sell because obviously that's the answer to my question because obviously I don't put him number 2. But I've been wondering like why it doesn't feel the same. Like it's not Gretzky-esque from a fan standpoint.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he's Russian, right?
Well,
like that's got to be it.
No, here's why. It's because Gretzky played through an era when the rules of hockey were supposed to limit goal scoring, and he scored 894 goals anyway.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, from a standpoint that like he's not just and I think we might be past the time where sports are so followed by so many people that the universally loved guy is just never going to happen again. Like I don't think we're ever going to see a Tiger. I don't think we're ever going to see an MJ. I don't think we're ever going to see somebody in sport like a Wayne Gretzky of that ilk where unless you're a direct rival of their team, you don't universally love that player. And some of those guys I just listed were universally loved by their opposing fans too. But I just don't think with the way that the world works today with social media and how much how close we can follow these players and how open we have of a relationship we have with them, that we'll ever see that again. I think that's got a little bit to do with it too.
And I mean, the other thing is like I said,
how available players are.
Gretzky played through an era when the 2-line pass or the 3-line pass rule was in effect.
Yeah.
He played through an era when there was no neutral zone trap. Like the game now is much more open to goal scorers. I mean, you don't anymore have a specific roster spot for a fighter, which is unfortunate back in the day.
Which is unfortunate. By the way,
there was on everybody's roster there was a guy who was marginally good at hockey but could really punch somebody in the head.
Yeah,
shout out Darren McCarty,
like Georgie Peros.
Yeah.
He was like the last fighter. And now there aren't room on rosters for those guys because you need everybody to chip into the goal scoring effort because scoring is so much more up than it was in the 80s. Like they're different eras of hockey.
Chicks dig the long ball, Brody.
Yeah, the one thing that I have to just tack on at the very end is I like the fact that this whole kind of saga that we've been through, from the amount of games that Ovi has played versus the amount of games that Gretzky has played, on par with each other.
Same number.
It's the same number of games, the same number of goals, and it was like, all right, that's good. And then having Wayne Gretzky give his comments about the record, that was the one thing that really kind of warmed my heart a little bit. When he came out, after he tied his record, and he said, my dad, when I broke Gordy's record, sat me down and said, hey, you seen how Gordy was like so kind and was like there for you when you broke his record? You better do this for the next young buck who comes in and does the same thing to your record.
I mean, how about this? In the last couple of years, we have had 2 records that looked untouchable fall.
Oh, yeah.
Like the scoring record in the NBA, which LeBron broke.
At age 40.
Nobody thought that was a touchable record. Like if Jordan couldn't do it, nobody was going to do it, right? And then Gretzky's like goals record was like it was unreachable, right? And now Ovechkin's broken that, and it just makes you start like there are some that are like, okay, Nolan Ryan's strikeout record, nobody's breaking that.
Yeah,
like Cal Ripken's consecutive games record, nobody's breaking.
What do you think is the most unobtainable?
Strikeouts.
I think it's games. In today's age,
I think you could find a position player that could do that.
It's more obtainable because of modern medicine, but it's going to be more difficult because of load management-esque things.
Exactly.
But nobody's breaking Nolan Ryan's strikeout record. Nobody. It's not happening.
That's the one that like is truly like stratospheric, astronomical level of where it's like there's no way it's even possible.
The game has so changed for pitchers. Like if you look at the number of complete games that Nolan Ryan threw in a season is like the number of complete games that pitchers will throw in careers now.
With like basically one pitch too, by the way. The other one thing that I think I want to throw out there that I don't think that there's any way that I think even maybe more than Nolan Ryan's strikeout record. Bill Russell's 11 championships in basketball.
That's ridiculous.
Like I like those 2 things. I think so much has changed. There's just no way that either one of them are going to happen. Can you imagine a 12-time champion in the NBA? That might be the only way you get the universal loved player. Now, that might not be true because people might just hate him like Brady.
Because in these days, you'd have to move around to.
That wasn't Bill Russell either.
You'd have to play for 8 different teams to get 11 rings these days.
That's a good point.
Just because of the freedom of player movement and the way the draft is set up, like you can't play for the same team for 20 years and win 11 titles. It's just not going to happen.
You would have to get to the 11 like championship level. You would have to have the same kind of power that Bill Russell had within that Celtics organization towards the end of his career.
Yep.
Because his last 2.
LeBron has it. He got 11 titles.
No, and he doesn't have it though. Technically.
I was going to say, according to who?
He doesn't have the same kind of power that Bill Russell
on paper anyway.
Where he was calling the plays, playing the entire game. He was a player coach for his last 2 championships.
Who coaches the Lakers now?
Nobody cares.
JJ Redick, technically.
What did he do before he coached? What did he do before he coached the Lakers? He hosted a podcast with LeBron James.
That's not the one with LeBron.
I know. But if you want to get in your feels, we're going to do that to you next on the other side of the break. We're going to do the social media soundbite. We're going to say goodbye to one of the best to ever do it in the women's college basketball game on the other side of the break. If you missed this segment, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. They stopped by my in-laws house today, and they switched out the furnace filter and made sure that it was ready to go. You know, you're supposed to do that monthly. If you're not doing that monthly, you need to have Controlled Comfort come out and do it. They're going to give you peace of mind about your HVAC, whether it be your AC, whether it be your heater. You know, listen, it's April in Nebraska. You need both of them. Get maintenance done on both at controlledcomfort.com tonight. We'll be right back. Give me the social media soundbite right here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Bob Williams of Williams Law. Do you have a son or daughter that's gotten in a little bit of trouble since the weather started warming up outside? Maybe they're in a parking lot they weren't supposed to, doing donuts, causing issues on private property. Well, if that's the case, you need to get a hold of Bob Williams with Williams Law. Bob and his team are going to give you a free, no obligation legal consultation. They're going to sit down with you, your son, your daughter, and your spouse and walk you through the litigation process, explain your rights, and get you ready for your big day in court. Check out WilliamsLawLLC.com. Get that free, no obligation legal consultation tonight. 7:27 on a Tuesday night here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. With over a decade of being number one in Omaha, get a free estimate for your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com. Tonight, Brody Heidemann has the social media soundbite queued up for us. Bro, what do we got? That is Paige Beckers, the now UConn legend, if she wasn't one already, after winning a national championship, talking about Gino Auriemma. And we talked earlier with John Walker about the shift in the Big East with the two top volleyball coaches leaving their respective programs in the Big East. Gino Auriemma is going to be 72. And you can't imagine there's too much left in the tank for a 72-year-old coach. But it kind of seems like he's the ageless wonder at this point, right?
Yeah.
Dude.
The crazy thing is so I watched this game two different ways. I watched it on, the traditional, let's listen to the announcers do their thing and listen to the color and the play-by-play. But then I watched the Bird and DT, like a little, thing that they do back and forth with each other. And
Dan, you're sicko.
I love women's basketball. Dan, lover of women. That's what everyone always says. But they were joking the whole time, because the question kept coming up. Is this going to be Gino's last title? Is this going to be his ride off into the sunset? And midway through the game, they were like, well, we don't really want to touch that one. It could be his last one. But then the way that Sarah Strong played in that game, I think Gino was watching that and saying, oh, I think I could probably get two more before I hang this up.
Yeah, no
Sarah's
doubt.
about to lead us to the promised land once again next year.
You know what's the crazy thing about UConn basketball as a whole? So between the men and the women's teams since 2002, they have 11 women's national championships and 6 men's national championships. And only 3 times in that time period did they win them in the same year.
Yeah.
Like how often that happens and the fact that it only happened 3 times is pretty incredible. They've been dominant, man, like from men and women.
Hey.
Obviously, when you got Gino Auriemma and Dan Hurley.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good combo.
Got to give him a flower.
It's been a good time to be a fan of UConn basketball.
No doubt.
There's no doubt about that. But with Paige Beckers, she was sort of in, like, I'll say this era of women's basketball. Like there was an era before with, Sue Bird and Maya Moore and that group of players that were like in the early days of the WNBA.
Sorry, Dan started twitching when you left out like 4 or 5 players there.
But
no.
Paige Beckers was a known commodity coming out of high school.
Yep.
Like, which those other players were to a degree. Shamika Holdsclaw, like we knew about them, but they weren't megastars like Paige Beckers coming out of high school. Like the hype around Paige Beckers coming out of high school could not have been any higher.
Agreed.
You want to know how high it was, John? I went to a Paige Beckers high school
Yeah.
basketball game when I lived in Minnesota.
Right. And this is like the culmination of her living up to that hype.
I agree.
And
she's been able to stay healthy.
We just don't get that all the time. Like even like Caitlin Clark coming out of high school wasn't as heralded as Paige Beckers.
No. And listen, this is obviously translates to Juju Watkins and her injury. And if anybody in Southern California is looking for a little bit of a silver lining, this is it. Like you can have a superstar come back. And obviously when she had that injury back in January where she went down grabbing her knee and you could hear the perennial breath of Storrs, Connecticut rush out of the state. But like she's over, like not only did she live up to the hype, but she overcame so much to do it with when, a lot of times you don't see that from the player when it's happening because injuries aren't really that prevalent, especially or talked about if they're not that serious.
Yeah, it was, the whole post game of it all is where I think it all really sunk in for me, especially, and definitely for this team and for Gino, I think for the most part, because that was like 90% of the questions that he kept getting from different media members and stuff is, how special is this championship for you and for, Paige? Because you've been, you see them all the time. They're like the two most playful people with each other.
Yeah.
Even in that clip where he's like, I told him I hated him.
Yeah.
And that there's like a genuine love between the two of them, and that all Gino wanted to see for her before she had to give up the rest of her eligibility was for her to win a national title. And to come so close multiple times and to get knocked out in the absolute horrid fashion that they had multiple times, this one just meant so much.
Have you guys seen the 2020 the top 4 players in the 2020 recruiting class?
Who are they, Brody?
Caitlin Clark.
She did all right.
Cameron Brink.
She's pretty good.
Angel Reese.
Pretty
Paige
good.
Beckers.
Yeah.
Number 5, Camila Cardozo.
Yes. And then number 7, Haley Van Lith.
Who was
They're all
who's
doing
trending on
very
social
fine.
media today, by the way, also.
I don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Hey, if you missed the social media soundbite tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by our friends at Pixel Fire Marketing. If your company's not showing up at the top of Google searches or you need help with search engine optimization, pixelfiremarketing.com is here to help. Their social media experts will ignite your social media presence, entice your ideal client, and engage your brand online. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com for more details today. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Our one and dones back in college basketball. We debate the other side of the break. 1620 zone.
Who's reading here? Oh, basketball season's over. Sad days ahead. But you don't have to be sad for long because Wing Wednesday's right around the corner. You can get your wing fix from Cunningham's delicious smoked wings. They'll cheer you up in a heartbeat. I promise you that much. Get the House Buffalo, different from anything you've ever had. They make it right there on site. Or the 4-alarm if you're feeling a little extra spicy. And if you're feeling weird, check out the blueberry sriracha. It's also delicious. You can't go wrong with any of the great flavors. The smoked wings at Cunningham's. We get them on Wednesdays. You can get them on Wednesdays. You can get them on free for Wednesdays if you follow us on social media and retweet that GIF of the wings tomorrow for Wing Wednesday. And what's better than free wings? Not much, friends. Not very much at all. Cunningham's Pub. They got a great location in Blackstone with a parking garage right across the street. You want to get in there. You want to get in there this week. You want to get in there tonight even, perhaps. If you're feeling a little hungry right about now. 2 great locations, Old Mill or Blackstone. Stop in and grab some dinner and drinks tonight.
7:38 on a Tuesday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, where we answer the tough questions like, what do you want for Christmas in April? We are brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Head over to pyramidroof.com. Book a free estimate.
Spoiler alert, it's pants.
For your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com tonight. One and dones in college basketball. Are they back? Is Cooper Flagg the future? Do we see one every single year?
Well,
okay. I want to say, before we even jump into this conversation, the one and done has been back for a long time. The one and done has always been a thing, specifically at Duke, much to Duke's detriment. They have had
Zion Williamson ring a bell?
Yeah, they have had extremely poor showings in March over the last couple of years, and it is to the detriment of the fact that they have embraced the one and done so hard and haven't been able to complete it. Whereas their rival, just a couple miles down the road in Chapel Hill, has done the exact opposite and has embraced keeping guys in college for as long as they possibly can and have made it to the Final Four 3 times.
Yeah, maybe it's more
Strays.
of a feel thing for me, but I just feel like the last couple of years we haven't seen as many one and dones.
Yeah.
At this level, anyway. Yeah.
I-
There
looking
hasn't been a guy where you go, that is the for sure number one overall guy after just 1 year in college. Like Cooper Flagg is consensus the number one overall.
The latest NBA mock has the top 9 players as freshmen in college.
That's a lot.
And 17 of, the top 17 of the top, I think it's 17 of the top 24. Yeah. The Pacers at 24 are projected for Thomas Sorber, the freshman center out of Georgetown, if he declares. So in the latest mock, 17 of the top 24
He's not, by the way.
would be one and dones.
Well, and I think a lot of the reason that we felt this way also is because of the rise in high draft picks for
Foreign-born players.
Players. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic dominating the NBA, everybody's looking for the next one, right? So,
Yeah.
and obviously Victor Wembanyama can be thrown into that equation as well. But I think that's why it's felt that way, because by the time the NBA draft has rolled around the last couple of years, I mean, look at last year, the top 2 picks, both non-American born players taken, to where it's like, okay, well, who's the best player in college basketball? Doesn't matter because they're not going number one overall.
Yeah, well, and I think part of that too is for the last couple of years, like the number one high school prospect who we've had come out has had something go wrong.
Yeah,
sure.
Whether it's Amani Bates just not living up to the
Man.
hype, or Mikey Williams and Mikey Williamsing himself around a little bit.
He's in the portal.
Folks, if you want to look up Mikey Williams, just Google him. You'll
Please
see
do.
exactly why there's a problem there.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems like we haven't had someone of that Cooper Flagg level where it's like he's got the hype, goes to the top ranked blue blood school, and then it's like, whoa, he is actually as good as we all thought he was going to be. And then it does help that over the summer, before he even went to college, he practiced with the U.S. men's national team. And they all were like, oh, okay, this guy is actually really good. Obviously, he's not going to go to the Olympics, but it's amazing to see someone who can play with us in practice scrimmages like this, at this level, at this age.
And the other thing is, I think that a lot of teams in college use the COVID year
Good
to
point.
get extra
True.
years out of guys who then took that 5th year and
Sixth
really
year,
developed
7th year.
Yeah, and really developed and became
Yep.
NBA draft prospects because they had that extra year in college. So there were more older guys that got drafted in the last few years. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't have the stats to
don't
say it
think you are.
definitively, but it feels like through the COVID years, there were players staying in college longer, taking extra years to
Well,
develop.
NIL has helped with that as well.
NIL has helped with players not being one and done. But this year feels different, man. There's a lot of like Jace Richardson just declared for the NBA draft, and he's good.
Yeah.
He wasn't even a starter
He's
halfway
not
through the
good.
season.
He's good.
He didn't start the first half of his freshman season, and he's declaring for the NBA draft.
And it's kind of a catch-22 though, right? Because when you look at the top, like it's kind of hard not to throw RJ Louise into this discussion, right? And he's obviously a guy that won Player of the Year in the Big East, and then he ends up getting benched, and now he's transferring out of St. John's and probably and actually ended up going into the NBA draft. But it's I say that to say this, like I've been very adamant about this about the college football playoff. I've been very adamant about this about the NCAA basketball tournament with all number one seeds making the Final Four. Just because it happened that way this year does not mean it's a trend. And with that being said, like I think guys like Cooper Flagg, guys like John Wall, guys that are, 1 year phenoms of college basketball that go on to take the league by storm. And obviously, Cooper Flagg, the jury's still out on that one.
Would we say that John Wall took the league by storm?
First 2 years, John Wall, yes,
For sure.
absolutely. But injuries piled up and all that. But with that being said, I don't know if you could say this is going to be a trend because I still think the transfer portal is changed everything. And like, look at the discussion we just had with John Walker earlier, who took this radio station by storm while he was here, about all the pieces that are being added at Creighton through the transfer portal. Creighton's not the only place that's happening at. And I think that's going to limit the guy coming in fresh off because listen, the third year, fourth year senior is more valuable now than the McDonald's All-American because they're more obtainable. And you've got proven commodity in that player. So I don't think the sought after number one overall guy is going to be as attractable as he was in the past. Now, I think Cooper Flagg is that one of a one player that he was because he's also very marketable, which matters. And I just think that is going to be fewer and far in between rather than saying it's going to be an every year type thing again.
So you don't think that the era of the draft being dominated by one and dones is back?
No, I don't. I think this is a 1 year standalone thing, and I think the open transfer portal market is going to have a direct reflect on that.
Because I look at this list of the mock draft, and I'm like, okay, Cooper Flagg's obviously number one. They have Dylan Harper, the freshman point guard from Rutgers, at 2.
Yep.
Which, okay.
Ace Bailey, the freshman from Rutgers, at 3.
That's who I would have out of those two players. By the way.
VJ Edgecombe from Baylor at 4. Trey Johnson from Texas at 5. Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma at 6.
Ooh, fair.
Malawach from Duke at 7. Kneppel from Duke at 8.
No. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Dan.
Jaco Sionis.
I would not take him in the top 10
Jaco Sionis from Illinois at 9.
I mean, none of this is going to matter.
Yeah, true.
He's made it past 5.
So those are the top 9 projected draft picks, all freshmen, all one and dones.
Think about how rare that is, though. And you think that's going to become a common theme?
I don't know, but it certainly seems like it's a change from what we've been used to the last 3 years.
And that's I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is I think the only thing you can consider consistent is change because it's different every single year because seasons are different. And listen, nobody's seen a global wide pandemic coming, so you know what I mean. It's
sure.
There's so many narratives that you can't just say, well, this is how it's going to work now. It's going to change forever. I just hesitate to say that. I think one and dones are always going to be a topic of discussion, just because the reason they are one and dones is because usually they're the best players in the game. But I really think that the transfer portal and keeping guys longer and NIL and longer eligible. Listen, that legislation for adding a 5th year of eligibility on top of a red shirt is still out there as well, which makes me think that that's going to make it a little more difficult too.
And the reason I ask is because I think a lot of us thought that college basketball was going to change drastically with NIL because players who were sort of fringe, they could be one and dones and go get paid, could stay in college and have a pretty nice payday and develop and then be an even better prospect the next year. I see a guy like Jace Richardson as that guy. Like if he stays until next year, he might be number 1 overall.
Well, and the other thing that we're not talking about here that changes the discussion a little bit too is the advent of the G League and guys getting paid to not necessarily be on NBA rosters, but get the pro basketball lifestyle too. So I think that changes the discussion a little bit.
Well, and it's another thing to say too, and I know go back to the college ranks thing because that's obviously what we're talking about. The Alexa Dimitrievich whole thing of it all, like I think that's something that you're going to see a lot more of now too, where guys from Europe who traditionally have played a little bit of pro ball, from a young age, can come over to America and say, I actually want to declare for college for 2 to 3 years and go play in college and, have that experience so that they can kind of acclimate themselves to the American game.
Yeah, and listen, Creighton getting Fedor. You could read it later, Dan. It's funny, Captain. We're reading your comments. I think getting Fedor eligible and having him perform the way he did down the stretch for this team could really pay dividends for trying to get European players to Creighton as well. Like having proven proof that hey, not only can we help you get eligible, but once you get eligible, you can be a piece here. That's a huge. I agree with John. I think it would have benefited Fedor a lot to redshirt this year. I don't know if Fedor comes back next year if he redshirts this year though, and I think he does this year because of what he's going to mean to this team next year.
Yeah, it's going to be something interesting to watch. Whether NIL actually makes players stay longer, which was the hypothesis for most people from the beginning, or whether it's business as usual now that we're past the COVID years.
Speaking of business as usual, we have to get to our Papillion Sanitation trash takes of the night. On the other side of the break, if you missed this segment, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear, the premier suit buying experience in the Midwest. Whatever you're looking for your big day, Jerry Ryan has it. Not only going to make you look great, they're going to make your groomsmen look great. They're going to make sure your father-in-law looks great. They can dress everybody in your wedding, no matter what the size. My brother-in-law's wedding, 16 groomsmen. My wedding, 1 guy. They could do it for all of us. They could do it for you as well. Stop by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear, 78th and Dodge. They've been dressing Omaha for over 50 years. Trash takes the night. Wrapping up the show the other side of the break. 1620. The Zone.
I know. All right. So I might be the fool in the room, but I'm the one who's deciding to do a bulk right before summertime. And to achieve that bulk cleanly, I've got to go to one of Pepper Jack's 10 great locations and get a chicken rice bowl with all the vegetables and, of course, some jalapeno juice for my taste buds and just for the digestion. If you want to be just like Dan Campanen, get big, strong, swole, and strong as ox, you need to go to one of Pepper Jack's 10 great local locations tonight.
It is closing time inside the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Head over to pyramidroof.com to get a free estimate for your windows, your roof, your gutters, your siding. They do it all. It's time for our Papillion Sanitation Trash Takes tonight. What we'll do here is John, Dan, myself, and Brody will all give you a hot take. We'll put a poll up on Twitter. You'll be able to vote for who had the best take. Whoever receives the least amount of votes will have the trashiest take of the night. I'm going to go ahead and start us off. That may have been the worst finish to a national championship game
We didn't even talk about
that
it.
I have ever seen, and we didn't even get to it. So I'm going to throw it in. I'm replacing my trash take tonight. I may be a little biased because I need Houston to win to sweep 4 bracket pools. I don't know how you could have had a worse possession to end that game. Maybe just turning around and handing it to somebody in a Florida jersey, but I don't even know if that's worse. They could have done so many things differently there. You could have just shot the ball, got it blocked, and got the deflection. You could have touched the ball, gave Florida possession, then fouled to try to get the ball back if they missed a free throw. You could have literally done anything else better than what actually happened at the end of that game. I don't understand why you take the ball out of your best player's hands in the first place. I know he wasn't having the best second half. So many confusing things. I feel horrible for Houston. I'm not trying to pile on the kid that turned the ball over, but man, that was pretty bad. It was the equivalent of a fart in church to end the national championship game. How do you take the ball out of LJ Cryer's hands in that situation? I know he got the ball and he willingly gave it.
There's so many questions.
I just don't. I don't understand.
It's wild to me that as often as we hear coaches talk about how much they work on end of shot clock, end of half, end of game, that's what you got.
Yeah.
Like,
because it was literally
you got
at
Sharp
the fever pitch.
Getting in the air and not releasing it. Like, I realized that Clayton Jr. was charging out and had a hand in his face, but you got to let it go, man.
Yeah,
Like,
there's literally 6 seconds
There's no
left.
time to do anything else.
Yeah.
You have, like, it just, the moment got too big.
Well, and Sharp got that shot blocked earlier in the game, then ended up in the backcourt, and Florida ended up getting the easy basket where Houston gave up the worst foul in an open court that I think I've ever seen in a championship game in my life, and it's not even close. And that probably played a little bit of a role in that, but you got to do something. Like, the alternative there was what you got, and that was literally nothing. It was such a fever pitch that everybody was like, oh man, we're going to get overtime in this amazing game. And like, that was the most anticlimactic end to a championship game I can ever remember.
Yeah. The Masters is my favorite golf event. It's a lot of people's favorite golf event. That said, Augusta National's had some problems.
Oh, you don't say.
We don't need to detail, the social issues that have happened at Augusta National through the years. Suffice to say, their track record isn't pristine.
Mm-hmm.
Augusta National has a chance to do the right thing for once. Angel Cabrera was put in prison for assaulting and threatening his ex-girlfriends. Now, Angel Cabrera is a past champion of the Masters.
True.
So, technically, he has the right to play in the Masters. Augusta National does not have to let him, though. They do not have to let him on their course. This is a person who has committed egregious crimes. You're not beholden to him for any reason. You have a chance, Augusta National, to do something that would be a moral good, and that is stop Angel Cabrera from playing in your event, because as a person, he no longer deserves that stage. He has forfeited that right, and you have the chance to do something about it.
Couldn't agree more.
There's something that is oft not talked about at said Masters golf tournament, and that is
the prestigious greens.
My favorite thing.
Grass cut.
No, it is my favorite thing that they get to do every single year. And the past champion is the only person who gets to actually do this. And that set the menu, baby.
Oh, yes.
For tonight's dinner. Cheeseburger sliders, firecracker shrimp, Papa Chef's meatball and ravioli bites. First course, Texas-style chili. Main course, wood-fired cowboy ribeye or blackened redfish with quite possibly the greatest arrangement of sides in the entire history of sides. And for dessert, a warm chocolate chip skillet cookie. I just want to take my hat off to you, Mr. Scotty Scheffler.
We know what he would have for his last meal in prison.
Yeah. We want to say, man, you sure know how to plan a dinner party. And if you ever need a couple extra friends to come on over on a Sunday night,
After hours is here for you.
And keep Meredith company in the kitchen, I'm your guy.
Brody Heidemann?
I mean, we're all just going masters on our hot takes. Honestly, just looking at the odds and looking at who's in this field, I think a guy from Live's going to win this week. That's my hot take. I think a guy from Live. There's a lot of guys at the top of these odds, a lot of guys that have some experience coming into this tournament. I think a guy from Live is going to win the Masters this year, whether it's Rahm, DeChambeau, Neiman, Koepka.
I don't think Dan Camden agrees with you. Hey, if you missed our entire show tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Allo Business. Are you dealing with a managed service provider that's not giving you the answers you need for cybersecurity, voice solutions, or even the technology solutions that are right in front of you at your fingertips? If you're dealing with something that doesn't give you 24/7 local customer support for your managed service provider, you need to work with Allo Business tonight. Check out allobusiness.com for more details. For Brody Heidemann, Dan Campen, and John Schreiner, I've been Jimmy Allen. Happy National Empanada Day, everybody.
Yes.